In a world filled with noise where each day carries new disturbances, the question arises, is it possible to live in a way where nothing can unsettle us? We step outside and are swept into the rush of crowds. We open our phones and are pulled into a chaotic sea of information. We go to work and can be thrown off balance by a single small criticism. We return home and sometimes even an unintentional comment is enough to shake our peace of mind. How many times have you wondered why calmness feels so fragile? And how many times have you wished to become the kind of person who can walk through storms with a steady heart, talk to difficult people without feeling hurt, and face unexpected events while still protecting the clarity of your mind? Stoicism emerged more than 2,000 years ago to answer that very question. It does not teach people to run away from the world. It teaches them how to stay grounded within it. The Stoics believe that peace does not come from life becoming easier, but from our ability to master our reactions to everything that happens. When you change the way you see and the way you respond, you do not just change that moment, you change your entire life. Imagine walking through a city swept by strong winds. Everything around you may be moving, but within you there is a center that remains bright and unmoved. That is not numbness. It is the strength of a disciplined inner world. On this journey, we will explore the principles that help you move closer to that state, a state where you are no longer carried away by every word, every action, or every sudden event. A state where you feel like the master of your mind rather than a victim of circumstances. And when you reach the end of this journey, you will realize that peace is not something someone gives you. It is something you can create every day through your own awareness. Let us begin. Principle 1 is the foundation of this entire path. Placing reason before emotion. Because if you let emotion lead, even for a moment, you can lose the calm you worked so hard to protect throughout the day. People tend to act on impulse when their pride is touched, when they feel insulted, or when they face pressure. But the Stoics understood that the first reaction is never the wisest one. Think back to the times you rushed to say something and wished you could take it back. The times you sent a message while irritated and later realized it made everything worse. The decisions you made while your mind was still full of turbulence. All of these moments make one truth unmistakably clear. You wish you had been calmer. The Stoics saw reason as an anchor that keeps the mind from being swept away by the waves. Emotions can be strong and arrive quickly, but you always have the ability to create a pause before you react. That pause is where reason steps in. With just one deep breath or a simple question like, "Is this worth losing today's peace over?" you will notice that the impulsive energy immediately softens. Reason does not mean being cold. Reason means placing clarity before instinctive reactions. It helps you see things in their true proportion, prevents emotional exaggeration, and allows you to maintain your inner dignity. When you let reason guide you, you not only reduce conflict, but also build an inner strength that makes you difficult for others to shake. And that is the first step toward living as if nothing can disturb you anymore. Principle 2 is one of the most important keys to tranquility. Realizing that many of the sorrows in life do not come from what happens, but from how we interpret those events in our minds. Sometimes the event is as small as a pebble, yet the mind turns it into a boulder blocking the entire path. The Stoics call this self-created suffering. Think of the times you let something small ruin your entire day. A slightly harsh comment, a confusing look, a tiny mistake at work. The event itself lasted only a few seconds, but for the rest of the day, your mind replayed it dozens of times. And with each replay, it grew bigger, heavier, and darker. But ask yourself this, are all these troubles truly coming from the event or from the story you added on top of it? Stoicism reminds us that it is not the event that harms us, but our judgment of it. When you change the way you see something, you change the emotion attached to it. If you treat a small mistake like a disaster, you will live as if the whole world is against you. If you see it as just another ordinary detail in a day, it becomes as light as a leaf falling to the ground. Train yourself to pause whenever your mind begins to exaggerate things. Ask yourself whether this is truly serious. Will it still matter 3 days from now? And most importantly, is it worth sacrificing today's peace for? Once you learn how to cut off the troubles created by your own thoughts, life becomes much lighter. And that is the next step toward reaching a state where nothing can throw you off balance. If the first two principles help you clear the chaos in your perception, then principle 3 helps you build an inner safe space that no one else can enter. Imagine that within your own mind, there is a room that is quiet, softly lit, and touched by a gentle breeze, where no one is allowed to create noise. No matter how turbulent the outside world becomes, you can return to that space with just a few breaths. Stoicism teaches that peace does not appear on its own. It is built little by little through small habits. 1 minute of silence in the morning, a moment of deep breathing before starting your work, a simple awareness that your body is tensing up, followed by a gentle release of your shoulders. These small, almost invisible actions are the building blocks of a stable inner life. Try to sense your inner world like a lake. The surface may ripple when the wind blows, but if the lake is deep, the waves only touch the top. That depth is stillness. The more a person understands themselves, the more they know what truly belongs to them, and what does not, the deeper that stillness becomes. When you can distinguish what is your concern and what belongs to others, you stop letting unnecessary waves disturb your mind. Start with simple practices. Sit quietly for 1 minute after waking up. Close your eyes and observe your breathing whenever you feel tense. Find an image or a sentence that helps you return to your center. You do not need to meditate for hours. You just need to learn how to come back to yourself at any moment. A quiet inner world does not make life easier. It simply makes you less easily swept away. And that is the foundation of true tranquility. Principle 4. Practice daily self-reflection. On the journey toward calmness, daily self-reflection is like cleaning the mirror of your mind. If it is not cleaned, dust will accumulate little by little until it blurs everything. But with just a few minutes each day, you can look back at yourself with honesty and gentleness. The Stoics saw this practice not only as a habit, but as a foundation for becoming stronger with every passing day. Imagine that every night before going to sleep, you give yourself a small, quiet moment to review the day that just passed. Not to blame yourself, not to assign fault, but simply to observe. Observe what made you unsettled. Observe how you reacted. Observe what made you proud and what you want to do better tomorrow. With just a few questions like these, you help your mind organize everything with clarity. Stoicism believes that we do not grow because time passes, but because awareness deepens. Each time you look back at a reaction that was not ideal, you are retraining your way of responding. Each time you notice a moment when you stayed calmer than before, you are strengthening your belief in your own inner power. Self-reflection helps you see progress that the eye normally overlooks, and it also helps you recognize the weaknesses that deserve your care. Try keeping a small notebook or a note on your phone. Each night, write down 3 things. 1 thing you are grateful for, 1 thing you want to improve, and 1 thing you did well today. These small entries will, over time, become living proof of your growth. When you practice self-reflection regularly, your mind becomes less trapped in minor disturbances. And from there, you gradually become the kind of person whom very little can unsettle. Principle 5. Accept the impermanence of everything. No principle brings relief to the mind faster than understanding that everything changes. Emotions change, people change, circumstances change, and even you yourself change day by day. Stoicism sees impermanence as the natural condition of life. We suffer most when we try to hold on to things that no longer belong to us, or when we expect them to stay the same forever. Look back at your life. The moments that once made you deeply happy eventually passed. The periods that once exhausted you also faded away. The relationships that were once filled with hope eventually changed with time. If everything is always moving, why do we try to force life to stay still just to match our emotions at a particular moment? Accepting impermanence is not surrender, it is understanding. You understand that today's sadness will eventually soften. You understand that today's joy should be appreciated because it will not last forever. You understand that any hardship will eventually come to an end, just like every rainstorm has a stopping point. When you carry this mindset, you no longer panic in the face of change. You begin to see change as a natural part of life's rhythm. Remind yourself during difficult moments that this too will pass. You can place your hand on your chest, take a deep breath, and recognize that the emotion you are experiencing is just a short wave. Waves cannot stay forever. They come and they go according to their nature. When you understand impermanence, you stop clinging and you stop resisting. And when you no longer fight against life, tranquility naturally flows into you like water finding its level. Principle 6. Practice the art of letting go. Letting go is one of the greatest challenges in life, yet it is also one of the most important skills for achieving tranquility. We often strain ourselves trying to hold on to things that no longer fit who we are. A relationship that has gone cold, a dream that no longer matches the person we have become, a painful memory we keep carrying just to remind ourselves of old wounds. The more we hold on, the more exhausted we become. The more we cling to what cannot be changed, the more we create chains that bind us. Stoicism does not teach us to forget, nor does it teach us to be indifferent. Stoicism teaches us to accept the boundary between what we can influence and what we cannot. When something has reached the point where additional effort brings no result, holding on only hurts you more. Growth is not always about trying harder. Sometimes it is about knowing when it is time to stop. Imagine you are holding a rope. On the other end is something you want to control but cannot. The harder you pull, the more your hands burn. The tighter you grip, the deeper the wounds become. Only when you let the rope fall do you realize you can breathe again. Letting go is not failure. Letting go is giving freedom back to your mind and your heart. Ask yourself whether this is still something you have the power to change. If the answer is no, the most beautiful step you can take for your future is to gently set it down. When you let go of the right things, you open the door for better things to come in. Letting go does not make you weaker. It frees you from unnecessary burdens so you can continue moving forward with greater lightness. Principle 7. Do not suffer over things that exist only in your imagination. Among all the fears humans face, there is one type that causes the most harm, yet does not exist in reality at all. It is the negative scenarios we create in our minds. Stoicism teaches that we suffer more in imagination than in actual life, and this is true to such an extent that almost everyone has experienced it. You worry that others are judging you. You fear that something terrible is about to happen. You assume a conversation will become tense. Yet most of these things never take place in the real world. They grow only in your mind. Think back to the times you were anxious before an important meeting. You imagined one worst-case scenario after another. But when you walked in, everything unfolded normally. You spent the entire day stressed because someone did not reply to your message right away. But it turned out they were simply busy. Our minds tend to exaggerate danger as a form of self-protection. But it is exactly that exaggeration that steals our peace. Stoicism offers one very important question. Is what I am worrying about actually happening, or is it only happening in my mind? This question works like a light shining into the darkness, helping you see clearly that many things you fear are only shadows drawn by your own mind. Practice writing down your fears. As you write, you will see how far they drift from reality. Then write down how you would handle the situation if it truly happened. When you do this, the fear loses its power and you return to a state of control. Do not let things that have never happened steal your energy and your real joy. When you face only what is truly in front of you and stop chasing imagined scenarios, your mind becomes much lighter. Principle 8, do not turn small problems into big tragedies. In life, many issues are so small that they deserve only a few minutes of our day. Yet somehow they become the reason you lose your calm, lose your energy, and sometimes lose an entire beautiful day. An unrefined comment, an ungraceful criticism, a plan delayed by a few minutes, a minor conflict at work. These things are merely specks of dust, but the mind turns them into heavy stones. Stoicism teaches that it is not the incident itself that exhausts us, but the way we exaggerate it. Spilling a cup of coffee is not the real problem, but the irritation that follows you through the whole morning is what drains you. A thoughtless remark is not dangerous, but replaying it in your mind dozens of times is what fills your head with chaos. Ask yourself one very simple question. Will this still matter 3 days from now? If the answer is no, then why should it be allowed to take over your emotions today? When you see things in their true proportion, you realize that many of them are not worth investing your energy in. Practice letting go of small things so you can save your calm for the things that truly deserve your attention. Do not let your mind become a trash bin for the day's trivial annoyances. Whenever something bothers you, take a deep breath and remind yourself quietly that this is small and you do not need to exaggerate it. When you stop turning small inconveniences into major tragedies, life becomes much lighter, and you step closer to a state where nothing can easily disturb you anymore. Principle 9. Focus on your actions, not obsessing over the outcome. Many of life's worries come from one thing. We care too much about results and forget that most outcomes are beyond our control. We want recognition. We want everything to go perfectly. We want our efforts to be rewarded. But the more we expect, the more we are pulled between 2 points: what we want and the reality we cannot control. Stoicism teaches that peace comes when we shift our attention away from outcomes and focus on how we act. Actions are what we can control, outcomes are not. By devoting yourself fully to the quality of your actions, you free yourself from the fear of failure and the anxiety about the future. Think of a time when you were preparing an important project. You worried whether it would be accepted, whether others would be satisfied, whether you did well enough. But if you let go of these expectations and focus solely on doing your best, much of that fear falls away. When you shine your attention on what you can do instead of what you hope to receive, your mind instantly feels lighter. Ask yourself one simple question: what is the best thing I can do right now? By focusing on that, you create a sense of control. You also build confidence because you know you've given your full effort and left nothing undone. The outcome may or may not turn out as you hope, but how you act is always your asset. When you live by this principle, results no longer disturb you. You become steadier, calmer, and far less affected by what lies beyond your control. Principle 10. Let reason be your guiding light through emotional storms. Once you've learned not to exaggerate small problems, not to fear what hasn't happened, and not to create unnecessary mental obstacles, you realize an essential truth. All these efforts are only sustainable when reason serves as your guiding light. This is the final principle, yet it threads through all the others because no one can remain calm if they let emotions steer their life. Emotions are like waves. Some days the sea is calm, some days it is turbulent. Sometimes emotions rise so quickly that you feel the urge to react immediately. But reason is like the bedrock beneath the ocean. The waves may rise and fall, but the rock remains steady and unchanged. A Stoic does not try to control the waves. They simply stand on the rock to avoid being swept away. Think of moments you've faced: a sudden criticism, unexpected bad news, a difficult decision. If you let emotion take the lead, you act out of fear or anger. But if you step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself what the most rational action is at that moment, you move from being reactive to being in control. Stoicism doesn't demand rigidity or being emotionless. It teaches you to observe emotions like clouds passing across the sky. You notice them, acknowledge them, but you don't let them take over the entire sky of your mind. When reason guides you, your choices become clearer. You know when to speak and when to stay silent. You know which issues deserve your attention and which should be let go. Most importantly, you maintain inner calm even when everything around you shakes. This is the state we call nothing can disturb you anymore. Looking back at these 10 principles, you realize tranquility is not a gift life gives you. It is a skill, a practice, a choice repeated in every situation, big or small. You cannot stop the wind from blowing, but you can learn to stand firm. You cannot control the actions of others, but you can control your own responses. Every time you choose calm over impulsiveness, reason over panic, you build a stronger version of yourself. Stoicism doesn't promise an easy life. It promises that you will become resilient enough not to be swept away by trivialities, strong enough not to be knocked down by the unexpected, strong enough to carry an inner light that no one can disturb. Practicing these 10 principles daily, even a little, brings you closer to living in a state where nothing can shake you. If this video brings you peace, clarity, or a steadier perspective on life, leave a small sign to show you're on this journey. Tap like to help the message reach others seeking calm. Tap subscribe to continue exploring simple yet profound Stoic lessons on inner strength, self-mastery, and freedom of mind. Before you go, write down one short promise to yourself. I choose calm. The moment you write those words, you've taken another step toward mastering your inner world. May you always preserve your inner stillness, no matter how much the world moves around you.